Have we got a project going tonight? Rust. More cancer. Oh yeah. Well, hack and pack time. Interesting thing, I think this truck had a bench seat conversion in it, because there's these flip up things here, kind of like that the old jump seats would sit on, but they're mounted the other direction, and there's seat belt holders, two in the middle. But yeah, I guess there was a bench seat conversion you could get for these first gens. I read about it online. Anyway, enough about that. On to here. We can see the mount right here on the frame is completely broken out from all the tin around it. And I could go spend a bunch of money on patch panels for this thing, but I'm not going to do that. No. So I'm just going to start and kind of scratch it from there. And this floor pan here is basically flat, so it should be pretty easy to just cut this out and weld a piece of tin in there. And this here is going to be a little more of a struggle, but I'll just, from the factory they had this little ridge here that the floor pan kind of sat on, and was spot welded there. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll figure it out. Yep. Alright, I started by taking that old cab mount out of here, and this eyelet on the frame here is actually still good. When I redid that truck, that was rotted out too, and I ended up taking, I don't remember, like 1 inch washers or something, and I cut it out and welded washers into it. But yeah, for as bad as this cab is, the frame is actually surprisingly good yet on this truck. I mean, it's got surface rust, but it ain't rotten. But anyway, so then this piece here is the first piece that supports the cab, which you can see is broke. But this piece just came right off. It was rusted off. But this part here, and amazingly, the support here for the floor is actually not rotten. It's got a little surface rust, but up here she's bad. But from about here back, that's still good. And this piece here that runs up towards firewall, that piece there is pretty good yet too. I should be able to weld onto there. And this piece here, this half of the cab mount, was up on there, but I just drilled the spot welds out and popped it off. So now these two pieces in hand, you got a piece of 1/8 inch sheet here. I'll just be able to lay this out, and 1/8 inch is thin enough where I shouldn't have any problem bending it. I'll just lay it out, make a new one. Alright, here we are. New, I guess I don't know what you technically call this piece, but I got a new one made. Fits down in here nice like so. I kind of just hacked this hole out a little with the grinder to give me a little work room to start piecing things together. Now next is going to be the front cab mount. This is going to be a little trickier because I don't have much to go on here, but I'll get something cut out and figured out. Alright, I got the first little patch I made welded in. I drilled 3 5/16 holes and plug welded it in there, and then I just welded it top and bottom where this piece overlaps on there. And then I made a new solid 1/8 inch steel cab mount. That hole didn't quite end up in the right spot, but this is actually about 1 inch wider than the factory ones are, so the hole is going to have to be ahead of center. It's going to sit back a little further than a factory one, but Yep. So next, I got a piece of flat steel right here, and this is going to skin the inside of this rocker panel. Alright, so here's my new skin for the inside of the rocker panel, and right up here there's the first layer of tin, but then there's another piece here that's still solid yet, so I drilled holes in it so I can plug weld onto there, as well as weld on top of here, put a bead up here and weld her onto the cab. Now from the factory, there's this little kind of lip here, and that is, they weld the floor down through here, they pinch weld it, and then they pinch weld it here and get the outer rocker on. Well, I'm not gonna worry about that. Again, this is a no patch panels purchase repair. I'm just gonna take this flat steel and I'm gonna weld it right onto the top of the rocker here where the door seal is. It's gonna sit at a little bit of an angle so that way it still lines up at the pinch weld. Then I'll just fill this little triangle shaped thing in there, but yep, then she'll sit right in here just like that, and then yep. Alright, here it is welded in. I tied it on best I could to here and right up there and welded it along there, and I got that welded onto the cab. But I got this, because since the cab had settled down probably a good inch or so from not having a mount here, I had to take that bottle jack and I ran it up there, up to under the tunnel in the dash to jack the cab up to get it back up where it was supposed to be. And now that I got this mount welded in here, I had to tweak it just a little bit because it didn't perfectly line up, but hey, take a long time for that one to rot out. So now I'm going to get the jack out so I can get that 2x4 out so I can finish welding and then work on cutting the floor out better to put the floor patch in. Okay, I got the floor cut out now. I made myself a new floor pan. This is a piece of a old feed bin. It's galvanized. It's not quite 1/8 of an inch thick, but it's still heavier than, you know, a replacement pan would be. And part of the reason that didn't line up is because this is sitting in here at a little bit of an angle. Like I said, I wasn't going to worry about that, and I'm just going to take this little sliver and cut that off, weld it in, close that up, and yeah, then I'm going to start welding the floor pan into it. Now, I really, I guess, could have got by without cutting all that old floor out, but if you do that and you just layer the new piece right on top, the salt and the moisture will get in between the two layers, and then it'll rot the new floor pan out from the bottom up. So it's a little more work to cut it out and get everything lined up afterwards, but I think it's probably worth doing. So yeah, anyway, now to get this guy fit in there and do any fine tweak grinding and start frying. Alright, after pulling it in and out of here a number of times, cutting, trimming, remarking, I got it close enough, and I drilled a hole about every 2 inches all the way around the mount to plug weld into that mount, and I just took 2 self-tappers in 2 of the holes and screwed it down to pull them tight together to weld it all together, and then once I get the rest welded, I'll take these screws out and weld them holes too. And yeah, then it's just a 2-inch hole. This is the original plug that I pulled out of the old pan. Just took a 2-inch hole saw, cut the hole right where it makes the bend so you can get to that bolt down there if you ever need to. So, gotta get that welded in. Meanwhile, got this white piece of tin here that I'm gonna turn into a halfway's rocker panel for it. So what I got set up here is how I'm going to bend the bottom inch of it to make the lower lip. And this is 2x4, and then this is a nice hardwood hickory board, I believe. And screwed together, so theoretically all I gotta do is roll it and put weight on it. I'll need both hands, but then that should make the lower lip. You can't bend it, you know, with the pliers or the vise or something 6 inches at a time, because you won't get a straight bend. It'll be all wavy, because when you bend one part and one part's still straight, it'll actually kind of stretch the metal there and it won't work out. Anyway, alright, it's all welded in place all the way around. One thing I did notice though, since I didn't leave that little kind of step here, I just ran this straight and welded it on. This lip is not real big, and if I were to put some new weather strip on, because this stuff's kind of shot, you wouldn't be able to push it on there, because this lip is only, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch up here and 3/8 back here. But this ain't a restoration. This is a make it work, I guess. And I got my homemade rocker kind of tacked on there a little bit. Yeah, I know the rocker's technically only supposed to go here, but since this bottom panel of the cab's rotted out on the bottom too, I'll just run her up to there and hit her with the old poor man redneck seam sealer. And yeah, go from there. Well, I'm going to call that good. You know, just gotta let that caulking dry, and I'll drop the carpet down, bolt the seat back in. Those are not the right seats for this truck. I don't know what they're out of, but they're what it had when I bought it. And the guy who put them in, he drilled a hole right there, and they were to bolt them in. Well, this wiring harness sits right there, and he drilled through the wiring harness, and that explained why the back speakers never worked. But anyway, I got my nice hack job rocker panel installed. Yeah, it ain't perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. Better than it was, good enough for what it is.